Furthermore, carrying on. So, as I venture inside of Orchard House, again, how would one know if one did not live there in the mid 90s? Again, I think you will find if my mother and Satch are still alive, obviously my brothers and sister should be able to verify, as well as people like my Uncle Alan, Auntie Jean, um, Louise and Wendy, and, various others who visited, Paul, Paul Brennan, um, Reese and Megan were just about being born at that time, so um, I'm not sure whether they will remember or not. Probably not. Who knows? Probably they might. We shall see. You'll have to ask them. So, going inside Orchard House. So, what I'll do is I'll start with the entrance to the front door. Okay. Um, like I say, has to be detailed. Excuse the drawing, I can't sketch to save my feelings. So, if we go up some steps here, and we go through a front door here. Again, there was a window the side there. And if you go through another door, so there was like a short hallway in here. We used to keep hats, coats, shoes. You must always take off your shoes when you're in one of Sharon's houses. So you go into the dining room. There was a grandfather clock just on the right hand side there. Again, gave off the most wonderful, elegant of sounds. And if we go to, I think it's best if I use the menu. So radiator 1, it's right here, had a very posh cover. My mother ordered these, kind of like the almost, what's that ancient, not rector, what are they called? Almost like an ancient Canaanite design, Venetian in a way. The covers were, from what I remember anyway. So the dining room front view window, which would be here. The fireplace, which was here. Which was here. Fireplace was there. Next to it was Satch's administration table. It was where he would do all his administration paperwork and so forth. That'd be like a brown cabinet that you would pull down. You'd catch him at it quite a lot, actually, when he was paying bills and so forth. You'd keep paperwork in that cabinet. So the dining room table, 6 chairs, was right here. Very important. Had a kind of like weird kind of embroidery to the chairs. Kind of like different colours. Antiquish, very old in status and appearance. We had a barometer on the wall there, and I am more than positive we had a picture on the wall there of an old warship, the picture light above. If you watch Skyfall, I think it's either Skyfall or Spectre, when Bond goes into M's office. I'm sure there's a picture of an old warship in the office. I'm sure it's very much like that. So a side entrance, which we hardly ever used, is this one here. Side garden was here, Scourgegill Lane was here. So this is it, and the window, the dining room window was there. Again, we have a radiator cover too. So there's one there, and one there. More importantly, as you can see where I've done the dots there, blue antique chairs we used to have. It's the same chairs we had in the Blue Room in Field Terrace, which are these these dots here. We had one there, and we had one there. I forget the table that we had. Sure, we still had that brown table out of the blue room at Field Terrace in here. But more importantly, I think what's noteworthy is that around the fireplace there was these two blue antique chairs, which before my Satch and my mother would go out for dinner, they would sometimes have like pre-drinks, and they would kind of like talk about all kinds of crap, especially when they were having people over. They'd kind of like retreat into this room in front of the fire, drinking. So yeah, that's pretty much, as I've said here. On the dining room table, we always used to play cards as a family. Cards was a big thing in our family. It was just, Satch loved it, we all loved it, and we were all very competitive at it. As they'll tell you, choice of play, you could say, was Ace of Hearts. Again, people may find this boring, but that's life, really, isn't it? You grow up in certain households, and that's life. So what's Ace of Hearts? As my sister and brothers will tell you, my stepfather, my mother, if she's still alive, was Ace of Hearts. It's the game where you pick up 5. If somebody gives you the Ace of Hearts, if somebody gives you a 2, you pick up 2. Jack, you miss a go. 8, you're able to change the suit. And the first one with no cards left is obviously the winner. But if you were caught with a last card and then won the game but didn't say last card and didn't notify everybody else, and you forgot to say it, you were immediately, obviously, reprimanded, punished. Rules of the game, that where you had to pick up 2 automatically. I used to forget sometimes. Satch used to cheat all the time. And when my Dynamite, my Nana Fagan, would come up for weekends and stuff, she'd try and cheat as well. And you'd see them, as a kind of like a late teenager, you'd see them cheating, trying all kinds of tricks. But when we sat round and all played cards, these were the really fun memories, like the real fun times. And when we got together as a family, and obviously when Auntie Jean and Uncle Alan and Nana Gladys and Grandad Billy, they all, everybody that came over, that used to stop, we would all play cards as a family. And Satch would always sit right here. My mother would normally sit beside him. I would always sit around there. Margaret would swap around sometimes. Mark and Richard hardly ever played cards, but when Margaret came over, she'd always play cards. Nana, Gladdy, Grandad Billy, Auntie Jean. You know, we'd all play different, sit in different spots and so forward for like different times, and it was good. It was good. It was good growing up in that household. It really was. Family memories. So, yeah. So let's go back to this. So I would play chess with Satch all the time. He taught me how to play chess. He's actually a good player. Was a good player. I don't know if he still is. He taught me, obviously, the be-all and end-all of it. And I learned a lot from that and applied it into life. No, serious. It's interesting how games can have the ultimate effect on how you treat people and allow yourself to be treated. And especially, you know, with the kind of like quarter master brilliance of the game of life, which really is chess, isn't it? Oh, I think it is anyway. When brother Richard would always come up, he'd always play backgammon with Satch. Satch tried teaching me backgammon, but I just could never get into it. But nobody else would play backgammon except Satch and Richard. That's brother Richard. Mark would never play it. Margaret would never play it. I'd never play it. But he would always play backgammon with Richard. Those two loved it. So like when he'd come up for Christmas or whatever, and you'd go into the dining room, they'd always be playing backgammon. between them. Yeah, that's what's also noteworthy. We'd keep a handcrafted wooden. It's almost like it was like a polished version of solitaire. Do you know solitaire, where basically there's obviously a circle of wooden balls, and you have to, for those that don't know, that is, you have to get the middle ball out, get rid of all the balls, but leave the middle one that's in the middle. Get it back. The puzzle is basically to get rid of all the other balls and keep one ball, but put it back in the middle as a final. I think I did it once. In fact, I know I did it once. I was ecstatic. I'll never forget it. It's incredibly hard to do, and if you kind of really do not focus, you won't be able to do it. That was kept on the dining room table, obviously, when we weren't eating or whatever. Sometimes keep it on there. My mother would kind of polish the balls. Right, so where are we? Yeah, that's more or less like the dining room. And obviously, there was the garage. Came into Scarsgill Lane there. We'd have like a plaque on the wall saying Orchard House. Bit of side garden. And so forward. Right, where next? Yeah, I'll go to the hallway. So basically, what you'd have here is you'd have obviously the front door, you'd have the side entrance, but this would be the doorway going into the hallway, which would be here. So obviously you would go through the door. To your left was the living room door. There was the kitchen. You'd go take a sharp right here. There'd be a short landing where you'd go up some stairs, then onto another landing where you would look out the window. You'd see a field full of sheep, and then you'd come back on yourself and up the stairs. So this was the first part of the stairs. So under the stairs, a cupboard, Satch would keep his electrics, VHS tapes of me as a child. Very, very important again. So you'd come through the hallway door there. You wouldn't turn right, but you'd go straight ahead. I'm sure we had a mirror there. Could be wrong. And you'd go under the stairs. Obviously, this is Orchard House, not Field Terrace. You'd go under the stairs, and it would be kind of not that big. I can't remember whether we had a chest freezer in there or not. I'm not so sure on that one. So going into the living room. So this would be the living room here. So you'd come through the door. Straight ahead of you was obviously there was a 3-piece chair and couch. Be a kind of biggest chair here, couch here, another couch here. You had the window there looking onto the garden. Sure, we had a huge flat coffee table. It's about 2 foot off the ground, but it was really wide. Really wide. We'd have the television and everything in the corner in this huge cabinet where you'd open 2 doors. You'd open a bottom hatch. You'd pull that down. There would be we had Sky then, and VCR. Can't remember, whether we had a DVD player back then. I really can't remember. We had a fireplace there, and we had a huge mirror. And the mirror had a kind of really thick panels encompassing it, holding it on the wall. We'd have sure there was flowers or something here. But right here would be the ledge where the window would outlook onto the garden. But my mother would always kind of keep a really elegant potpourri, and she'd always swap it around with flowers and potpourri. And it was always smelling really nice in the living room. Did I ever sit with them? I'd always sit with my mother and Satch. Satch would be here. My mother would be here. Satch would always obviously have the main view of the television. I'd always come downstairs from my room to watch Monday Night Football, Sunday football, and so on, especially when Newcastle were on the telly. We'd always sit down as a family. Always, without fail. If I was not at the match and it was an away game, me and Satch and my mother would always sit down to watch the match without fail. There's not one game. I'd never watch it upstairs. We'd always watch it as a family. He'd always have his McEwen's Lager away top on. I'd always have my black and white top on. Always, without fail. And he'd always, forever... You see, Satch was a complainer. He probably still is. He used to complain all the time. My mother will tell you, he'd complain all of the time. And he used to go crazy when Warren Barton, which was a right back at the time, would give the ball away. He'd always go crazy when Warren Barton would give the ball away. And obviously, when we scored as a family, we'd all kind of like be celebrating and especially like cup matches where you're like more excited and stuff. But that was a beautiful time to be a Newcastle fan in those days. When Keegan basically just lit up the Northeast, the Messiah had kind of like returned, and it would. You see, we've got to remember in the Northeast is that it's their livelihood. They live for it more than all the other places I've lived in the UK. Geordies treat football almost like life. It's like, when you're kind of like you love your woman, you make love to your woman, and you care about it. They love their football just as much. I swear to you, it really is like that. So as a family, we'd always sit down and watch those away matches, especially like on a Sunday, because it would normally be on a Sunday. We'd have dinner first, and then sit down for the match. But I'd never watch it in my room. That's what's important upstairs. We'd always sit down as a family and celebrate as a family. When I would say a family, it would be just me, my mother, and Satch, because we're the ones that live there. You got to remember, Mark had left, Margaret had left, Richard had left. They left home in Field Terrace. They went their own ways in Field Terrace, with Mark with Lynn and Mark with Lynn and Margaret with Paul. Richard, I think he was seeing a girl at the time. She was a uni student, plumpish, I forget her name, big tits. He'll tell you. Richard went on to work at Sellafield with Satch. For all I know, I think Richard may still work there. Richard's also an electrician as well. That's why that family is kind of loves electronics and wires and mechanics and all kinds of stuff. Well, when I left school in Joseph's, I tried for a couple of apprenticeships. I tried going into that field, but I just didn't have the mind for it, really, to be honest. It was too boring to me. I think you've got to literally... I'm not saying my brother, my stepfather, or my other brother are boring people, because they're not. It's just you've either got to have the mind for that, and I was more of a people person. I tried getting... I think I went for a test at Vickers. I'm sure it's Vickers, which is where they made the tanks. Might have done a test there. I tried at CETA, Sunderland Electrical Training Agency, I think. I tried a couple of places that were just... Nah. Well, just... You got to remember, I didn't knuckle down at school, so it's just going to go in one ear and out the other, really. So what's important is that's really how that was there. Coffee table, fireplace, mirror. Where should we go on to next? So I've done the living room. I've done the dining room. I've done the hallway. So moving on to the kitchen. So the kitchen, obviously, you would come out of the living room and turn left and go into the kitchen here. So there was two parts to the kitchen. So you would go in the main door here. To the left was the stove. Quite a big one, actually. My mother was a clean freak. Literally just demanded everything to be spick and span. If you ever left anything out, they'd be on you. They really would, not just her, but him as well. So you'd go here. This one here is a kitchen knife block, which is on 4 wheels. They used to put it right here. This is where that infamous moment that Satch pulled a knife on my mother and my mother pulled a knife on Satch, and I had to separate them, as War of the Roses as it was. There was a hanging Sheila, more than positive, went over this knife block here. Had the microwave here, the sink here, and there was like cabinets around the side. So you'd go straight on, and there wouldn't be a door there, but there'd be an archway. And that archway would lead on to the second part of the kitchen. So you would go through the archway, which was that part there, which would come out onto here. So straight ahead of you, to your right, your first right, was the downstairs bathroom door. That would be first on the right. Next to that, underneath, would be the dishwasher. If I remember rightly, the washing machine was underneath a cabinet there. Back door was there, which was an archway. I'm more than positive the dryer was underneath this kitchen block here. But we used to have Tara and Chelsea's mats there. That's where they'd rest for the night. So coming back round, you would go round the side here, and this is where we'd sit down for breakfast. We'd always sit down as my mother and Satch. We'd always sit down for breakfast. My mother would get me up before Milo nursery. I'd have a cooked breakfast. Always. She would always make breakfast all the time, every time. And not just for me, but for Satch as well. So we'd always sit down. Television would be in the corner there. Satch used to sit there. Always, without fail, I would sit there. Always, without fail, my mother would sit there. Always, without fail. And we'd watch, like any other working family, GMTV or whatever it was. And Satch, as I've said before, would always curse Lorraine Kelly. He fucking hated her. He used to go... because he worked with a lot of jocks off the rigs, and he worked with jocks, at Sellafield and stuff. He used to hate them. At me, it just went in one ear and out the other, but now I can see why he used to hate them, because look at what they've done to me. Look how they've been treating me. They're fucking nasty pieces of work. They really are. And there will be... I won't hold back when the day comes, I'm telling you. I mean, that's not all of them, for God's sake. That would be illogical. But the general mentality is they're really nasty people. They always have been. So the kitchen table would be here. If you looked outside of this side window here, would look onto Fred and Avis's house there. Billy Williams and Kathy's house would be there. The front window would look onto the front garden there. And when Satch would sit down, always, he'd have this kind of like green body warmer on. And then he'd have his green shirt underneath. And he'd always have his pens in his shirt. And he'd always have these kind of like light green pants on. That was basically his work gear, right? I can't remember where my mother worked at the time. Oh yeah, my mother at the time worked at oh god, what do you call those? I'll have to get back to you on this. It's what she used to work in administration for, where they developed granite. I think it's granite off the A66. Is it granite? Oh, it's tipping my tongue. She worked there with a couple. She worked there with somebody called Louise, who was married to a guy called Kenny, who was a driver for Eddie Stobart. He was called Kenny, and his wife was called Louise. He was skinny, she was fat. She had attitude. He was a nice simpleton. He was a driver for Eddie Stobart. She worked at that's it. High Gork, is it? High Gork gypsum? Gypsum? Is it gypsum or gypsy? British gypsum, it could be. She worked there for a bit. I don't know, I could be wrong on that one, I'm not sure. I'll have to look up on that. She worked there for a bit, but then again, she worked many places. She was into tap dancing then. So what you gotta remember is that I was there between 93 stroke 94 to 97, so it was a good 3 solid years, and then I left in the autumn stroke winter time of 97 to go and live back at my father's in Burnley, 11 Montague Road. So that's the second part there. But here was the downstairs bathroom door. So the downstairs bathroom, you would go into there. The door was there. We had like an airing cabinet there. We used to put the towels. We'd have a toilet there. And there'd be like a really thin window here. But we'd have a shower. We'd have a downstairs shower in the corner there. Very simple. I've done the hallway, done the entrance, done the living room. First part, second part, downstairs bathroom. All right, so going up onto the landing. So if you went up these stairs, you would take a left and then come back up. In front of you, you would have this. So my room was to the left. Then in 1997, I swapped over to this room. I think it's basically I couldn't breathe in that room, and I was trying different kinds of like exhaust points, you could say. You'd go straight along. There was the bathroom. Spare room was the left room, and my mother and Satch's room was at the end there. Go into the bathroom. So you go through the front door here. To the right was a brown, sliding door. We'd keep all the towels, hot towels. They'd always have to be hot. In here, straight ahead was the toilet. Here was the sink with a kind of like big, beautiful mirror. Here's the south point. Satch, I think we ended up fighting one day over this. He would hate that every time that I'd get to the bathroom before him and I'd shave, wouldn't clean the sink properly. In other words, I'd leave my hair, and he used to get so angry about it. And he used to warn me, like, I don't know how many times, if I have to fucking tell you again to clear the fucking sink, and he'd go off on one because I wouldn't clear the hairs up after a shave properly. So we'd have a bath here. The shower would be here, but we'd have like a little mini step there. That's important, that. So you'd have to get up on like a mini step right there. But importantly, noteworthy was he attached a phone. He'd put, wired a phone into the bathroom so that when you were in the bath and the phone went, you would answer the phone there. I'm more than positive it was there rather than there, because he was all about convenience, and rightly so as well. And I'm sure it was it wasn't wireless, it was a corded phone that he'd attached to the wall, which was at the side of the shower here. Thin window at the top, and this ledge was all for like moisturizers, aftershave, all kinds of talcum powder, and all kinds of, between the three of us, used to leave all our stuff on this big thick ledge here. Very important, that. So moving up to my mother's bedroom. So you would go to the end, right here, and you'd walk in the door there. I'm sure they had the wardrobe on the left there. I think they had two. One was there and one was there. But in front was the main bedroom, which was overlooking the garden and the river. Used to have the television and all the things that came with it there. But they used to have a huge double bed waterbed in the middle. I'm more than positive that was my mother's side. That was Satch's. How do I know that that was Satch's? I'll tell you in a sec. Well, this was the waterbed. Very, very important that my mother insisted on having a waterbed, and whatever she wanted, she got. But more importantly, is this is where Satch used to keep his pornos. And what's interesting is that when you're at that age, you go sneaking about and so forward. And that's what's important, is that he hadn't gone near them in a while. How do you know? Is because there were dust everywhere. They were covered in dust and hadn't been kind of like used in a long time. I don't mean to embarrass him. I'm not, because it's just normal having pornographic VHS tapes in your side drawer. But you can ask him. But the dust used to collect, and I was always really paranoid about, shit, he's going to know that if I got one of these out and watched it, because it'll show my fingerprints on the dust. So I used to have to kind of like put my fingers, open it really carefully and get it out from the sides, so I didn't touch the dust on the side, because they were facing up, you see. So that's really important. He used to work with a guy at Sellafield called Wobbly Bob. Wobbly Bob used to give him pornos, and he'd always used to go on about Wobbly Bob, who he nicknamed, who he worked with. They'd always be having a good laugh at work and cracking jokes and so forth. So that's all very self-explanatory. If you don't believe me, just kind of like go and ask them. Where are we now? Yeah, so spare room. There's not much to the spare room. I didn't go in there much, but you would go in through the door here. I'm sure there was like cabinets there and there, but the window looking out onto the garage and the garden, you would look through there and you would see the garden over here. But we just had a big bed in the middle. But what was noteworthy about this bed is that it was one of these oak beds, but it had huge knobbles. That's the right word. Huge knobbly bits. They were like crystal balls. They were actually huge, but they're made of oak on the end. I'm not sure whether it was a 4-poster knobbly bed, but they definitely were on the end. Really, really important. So my room. Oh, I've not done the other spare room ever that I moved into. I'll have to do that in another video. My room here. So you would come in here, which is obviously my room there. This one here. You would come in here. You'd come through it here. On the back of the door, I used to have a poster of Jenny McCarthy. Oh, gorgeous. Lucky Jim Carrey, what can I say? She used to have these kind of like silvery, metallic bra and underwear on. She's absolutely gorgeous. And that's obviously why she was on the back of my door. But my mother would never let me put posters on the wall. But she'd let me put the poster on the back of the door. That's how strict she was. To keep in line with the rest of the house, obviously. So here I had a bed. My bed was single then. It was a single bed, not a double bed. It wasn't the most comfortable thing. The window was above, looking onto Scarsgill Lane and the sheep. I used to have a television there with a cabinet where I would watch X-Files. There was a show back in the 90s called Models Inc. Do you remember Models Inc.? I was kind of like, I used to love, they were all on Sky at the time, Models Inc., X-Files. They were all on kind of like one after the other. I used to love Models Inc. Probably when I think back because of the women, but important. But do you know what's interesting? The girl I was seeing at the time, Karen Bainbridge, I never forget us both lying down on that bed. When we watched Pulp Fiction for the first time, we just looked at one and I said, wasn't that such a good fucking film? And that's when I kind of sort of like really got into learning more about film, and through Pulp Fiction. It was through Tarantino and Pulp Fiction which kind of like compelled me. Do you know what? I want to do that. That's what I want to do. This is just what the fuck I want to do. And that's when I started, not long after that, thinking, do you know what? God, this is what I'm all about. This is what I want to do. I don't want to fucking pack plants for a living, grow plants. I want to be the name of the tune, for God's sake. And I'll never forget. We were drinking that night heavily as well, and we just watched Pulp Fiction that night on VHS. I think we rented it out. I thought, fuck me, that was something else. What's interesting also as well is my mother came in. I don't know whether it was the following day or some other time. I'd left a used condom at the side of the bed. And she came in and she saw it and she turned my fucking bedroom upside down, inside out, and piled it all in one big mountain and said, "Clean it!" Serious. I'll never forget it. And she, all because of that. And she took all of my stuff in the room, piled it up into all one big Canozolit mountain and said, "Clean it!" Just absolutely scandalous. So I had the wardrobe at the bottom there, the bed there, and so forth. I think computer-wise, then I had an Amiga. Remember the Amiga, the old disc, floppy disk. I had an Amiga. I played Sensible Soccer, from what I can remember. There was another game, Another World. Remember Another World? I used to love that. Yeah, just extremely straightforward stuff. So spare room, my room, bathroom, bedroom, hallway, living room, downstairs bathroom, kitchen, spare room. Yeah, simple as that, really. So just a few more memories on the log there. Date and time: 14:36, Monday, 18th of January 2021. Here at Mill House, Mill Lane, Wellington, Telford, Shropshire, Tango Foxtrot 1 Papa Romeo. Why am I doing this? Again, this is evidence for the FBI and Scotland Yard to verify that it was me in the 90s that was there. And more to follow.